Hello and welcome to another End User Talk podcast. I'm your hostess, Jamila, your Lady in Tech. Hello and welcome to the End User Talk podcast. I have a very special guest with me today. And first off, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your very, very busy schedule to be with me today on the podcast. I do want to make sure that you are doing okay. How are you doing today?
I am doing super duper fantastic. It's a beautiful day.
You know what it is, weather-wise, it's a little windy where I am, but for the most part, it is a nice day. It definitely is. But before we go any further, I want to give you the proper introduction. Will you please give us a brief introduction of yourself?
Who am I? That's a very good question. Number one, I am a God-fearing Christian woman. Number two, I am the author of Loving the Me I See, and Every Girl Is Not Your Friend. Number three, I live by the golden rule that's written in the golden book, which is the holy book. Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you.
Hands down, that has to be by far the best introduction that I've heard.
Well, it's just simply who I am, no fluff, no nothing. It's just simply who I am.
Well, I love it and I'm here for it. You know what? I want to kind of get into, so you are an author and I love the titles, by the way. May I ask, as an author, who or what is your target audience and what are you discussing in both?
Okay, let me just start with my first book, Loving the Me I See. God gave me the words of wisdom to write that basically on a third grade level, so young girls can soon and early begin loving the me that they see, looking in the mirror, because the mirror is the reflection of who we see, but it is not the totality of who we are. But we have to help young girls to understand that at a very early age, because all they see is the face in the mirror. So I wrote Loving the Me I See for young girls because it's very, very critical to know who you are at a very early age. And if you really don't like who you see, you're not going to take the time to love your inner beauty, who God truly created you to be. So that's with the first book. And then I follow suit with my second book, Every Girl Is Not Your Friend, because she's really not. But, young girls get really hung up on girlfriends and she doesn't like me. She doesn't want me around her. She doesn't want me in her clique, her club, whatever the case may be. And if we're not careful, young girls, as we know, they will develop into young ladies and to full-grown women. And these issues can carry on throughout a lifetime, which is very, very important. So my targeted audience is basically for young girls in the third grade, beginning with the third grade, where they can really, really read and understand and begin nurturing their self-worth.
Well, I like that. And with the particular topics of discussion that you chose in both of these books, are these things that you too yourself had to overcome or experience?
Well, my heart, let me just say this. I grew up, I had both of my parents, and we spent a lot of time with my grandma Marie on the weekends. And my grandma Marie, she always taught us, I have two sisters and one brother. She always taught us to love who we are. She said, people, there are going to be some people who like you. There's going to be some people who don't like you, but you need to like and love you. And so I started at a very, very early age of nurturing my self-worth, my self-esteem. I started very early loving who I am. Now, what pricked me to write the book is because I know how powerful that is. I had the nurturing. I had the example that my grandmother, she always taught me to just really like and love myself. So the power of that is unreal. Have I always just been on point with it? No, because it's a nurturing tool that we have to have in our lives. So being that I grew up with the tools of nurturing my self-worth and knowing how powerful it is, I wanted to help some young girl early on. I really did, because by the time I reached the 10th grade, I could see exactly what my grandma Marie was talking about. But throughout those years, God had blessed me to be able to nurture my self-esteem. Did I have good days? Yes. Did I have bad days? Yes. Am I perfect? Heck no. I am not perfect, but I can truly say that I have nurtured my self-esteem over the years. And being that I know how important it is to walk in any room, to be in any environment, any setting, and know your worth, to know who you are. So that pricked me, and I prayed and I asked God to guide me in writing Loving the Me I See, because it's so important. And I want every young girl to get that mental tool and to sharpen it and to begin loving and embracing her self-worth, because years goes by so fast. And if we do not wake up, we will go to our deathbed not really knowing who we are.
That is a very, very important point. Now, I am a mother of 3 daughters myself. They are now adults, and those are some of the things that I try to instill in my daughters from a very young age, and pray that those are the same things that we're able to nurture and surround them, or at least they would remember those conversations or those discussions as they went from kindergarten into 3rd grade, as you're stating, and from elementary school to middle school, and then from middle school to high school. We know that those transitions are very, very different.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They are, in some cases, they are very cataclysmic even.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And no, I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
No, ma'am, I'm done.
Well, I just wanted to add to that the importance of it, because the older young girls, the more they mature and the older that they get, it leaves self, and then it starts self-pleasing other people, wanting to be accepted, not only just in the girlfriend circle, but wanting to be accepted in the boyfriend's circle. And all it takes, if the self-esteem is not stable and the understanding of the self-worth is not there, all it takes is for a young boy, a young man, a grown man, because we know that time, makes us older. All it takes is just some sweet nothings. I mean, about nothing, whispering in your ear to make you, quote unquote, feel special, when we should already know our worth. I mentioned I am a Christian, and, I love Psalms 139. It just tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And we have to stroke that throughout our lives. If not, we will end up in all type of unhealthy relationships, whether it be with friendships with girls, intimateships with men, a boyfriend. It's just a pool of problems that can come along with that.
Miss Angela Clay, I'm going to tell you right now, you are speaking a word. And I'm going to have to keep my mute button on because I want you to finish what you're saying, because you are, again, I am a mother of 3 daughters, and those, as a parent, as a mother who has also gone through these various transitions and trying to identify myself and where I fit and where I belong. I know what that journey is like, and I know how unstable those grounds can be. And then when
go ahead.
When you add boys to that, because that is the next stage. When you add the male to that picture and that scenario, and you haven't fully formed your personality, your identity, who it is you are you firmly believe you are, those things that you really and truly, and you're not swayed.
Right. Or you're not easily to be swayed, because it's some craftiness out here. If my father wasn't around me, hypothetically, then I will look for a father figure in a male. But that can lead to dictating, that can lead to being possessive, that can lead to a whole lot of problems, mental, verbal, emotional, abuse, and not to mention physical. So it's extremely important to get a grip early on.
We're talking about just the relationship between male and female right now, and then a young woman or a young girl, a young adult woman, and then we get as to women being an adult woman, what society recognizes as being adult woman. Let's talk about how those who are considered bullies, no one, I would say, would identify themselves as a bully. You might find a few people who are proud of that title and they carry it well, and they're proud of the title, basically. But when we're talking about these terms and we're trying to help build a young girl's self-esteem and help them be able to stand their ground, how easily is it for a young girl to confuse being confident in oneself and it teeter-tottering into being a bully?
Well, that's a very good question. Let me just say this. Bullies are very insecure people. They want to be recognized. They want to be loved. They want the whole audience attention. So bullies are really insecure people. But what they're good at doing is camouflaging their bulliness, and they are preying on the weakest link. I don't think you've ever seen or ever read about a bully going up against a giant. Okay? A bully doesn't normally target people who know their self-worth. A bully doesn't normally target people who are not going to put up with their shenanigans. Bullies are bullies to people who they feel like they can intimidate because they are hurting. Something is missing within. And you know what that something is? It is self-love. It's self-love. So if I can bully you and make myself feel better, then I feel like I'm worthy. It is a mixed up mentality that is all wrong. But bullies don't become bullies by themselves. Under the umbrella, living in the house with mother or father, mother or boyfriend, mother or many men, our father and women, our father and wives, however you want to summarize it, under the umbrella, the bully is learning the bad bully behavior. So either dad or mom are getting abused verbally, mentally. And so what does the bully do? The bully wants to stand up for mom or stand up for dad. Because at that time, mom is the weakest link or dad is the weakest link. And so what that bully does is take what they learned from the household and takes it to school. And they vow to themselves, no one would treat me like my dad treats my mother, or my mother treats my dad, or my boyfriend, mom treats her, our girlfriend, whatever it is learned behavior. But to summarize it, bullies are very insecure people who are trying to find their way out of the bully cycle. And may I add this? So the bully is looked upon as the brave one, the powerful one, but the bully is really the weakest link.
And that's right. So from the outside looking in, you would confuse that person's insecurities with confidence.
Well, the thing about it is that people who can see that are people who are confident within themselves. People who can see that are people who have high regards for their self-esteem. People who cannot see it are still blinded by their own insecurities. And so they humble down and they bow down to people who bully them. So let me just give you an example. My grandma Marie always said, you have to have some standards and you have to have some boundaries. So I learned this early on. Okay. So the standards is how I am going to allow anyone to treat me. And my boundaries are, oh no, I am not going to tolerate this type of behavior. Whether it be in a relationship with a boyfriend, a platonic relationship, a friendship, a girlship, whatever type of ship it is, there are standards and boundaries that must be set. So people who get pulled in it are those who cannot truly see their worth. They don't know their worth, because at some point in time, you must say enough is enough. But the confident I didn't say the perfect I, but the confident I can look and see and go, you know what? You're not going to talk to me like that. Because I'm not worried or concerned about being your friend and you're treating me any kind of way. Does that make any sense?
It makes complete sense. It does.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's very difficult for people because the thing with individuals who are insecure, they basically utilize they're really good with, I use the term acting very loosely, but it's more so they know how to hide or cover up their insecurities. So they become very, very good at what they do, pretending to be something that they are not. And so they become very skilled in hiding these nuances. And
yes, because people don't want to be exposed.
No. And then you get comfortable with, they respect me. This is exactly I like this. I enjoy this feeling. And so instead of them going in and trying to say, you know what, I'm not really being true to myself, because there are occasions where bullies are just not liked.
Right. Exactly.
You're not the person that someone, and I'm sorry, I really don't mean to use the term bully. I just know that a lot of people identify with that term.
Yes.
But individuals who do have low self-esteem,
Yes.
and 90% of the time, you're not the person that they want to invite to birthday parties, to sleepovers, or to hang out. Now, they may include you out of fear, but you really, and you know deep within your heart that these people don't really want me around.
And so why should one want to be around? And that's and that hate to digress, but it goes back to every girl is not your friend. It could be every boy is not your friend, whatever the case may be. But each individual, must come to agreement with him or herself and say, you know what, I don't deserve to be treated like this. But you can't see that if you can't see your worth. You have to see your worth before you can see anything.
You can't. Recently, the great actress Cicely Tyson passed away at the very ripe age of, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but 96, I believe is
correct.
Okay. I saw, now mind you, I've seen Cicely Tyson in so many different roles, and she actually, to me, if you're going to look at outwardly entertainers, she's one of those who has maintained a strength about herself,
Absolutely.
Just a sense of pride and wisdom is the word I was looking for, even as a young woman.
Yes.
But I saw this quote yesterday through the many celebrations of her life. But this quote resonated with me. The moment anyone tries to demean or degrade you in any way, you have to know how great you are. Nobody would bother to beat you down if you were not a threat.
Ooh, listen how powerful that is. Listen how powerful that is.
That speaks volumes to so many. That resonated so deeply with me, because what we're discussing, you can feel this in so many ways. And right now, not just as a woman, as a male, it doesn't matter what your race or ethnicity is. Now, as a Black woman, I know Cicely Tyson was coming from a place of, she's seen a lot in her time, in her years.
Yes, absolutely.
So more than likely that quote was coming from a place of the injustices and the biases that most of us as Black people, male and female, young and old, experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you were just describing, just the substance of her, when you were just describing the substance of Cicely, I can't help but to think about how she refused to exploit herself, sexually on stage or on screen or TV. I mean, how she refused to play the crackhead or the whatever. She had a standard about herself. She did not play demeaning or condescending roles that already stereotypes are labeled for Black women. She had standards and she had boundaries, which these things are extremely important, because if not, you will find yourself, man, woman, girl, boy, you will find yourself in and out of tumultuous relationships, in and out of craziness and foolery and everything. And not only that, you will sell your soul to the devil. If the money comes along and I want to demean you as a race, as a culture, as a people, as whatever, the money is good. Hey, I'll play that role. But she did not. She always had high standards, even in the early days of her life. I mean, just think about it. She lived for 96 years.
Mm-hmm. And I saw another, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I saw another example of just how prideful she was in herself and who she was and representing herself properly. There was another example of how she was the first Black woman to wear natural hair.
Yes. Yes, on national television.
Big film, exactly, on stage.
Exactly. And one of her quotes, what was it? To thy own self be true. If you do that, what did she say? If you do that, you will have no regrets.
That's right.
So it's so important. It's just so important. But the life that she led and the legacy that she left behind is of strength. It is of standards. It is of boundaries. It is of elegance. It is of class. It is in a class she's in a class all by herself because she did not bow down or submit to anything less that she had already made within her heart that she was going to do or not do.
I'm so glad you actually touched on that because there's so much confusion about who a woman is and what she should be and what's deemed as strength and what's deemed as not being afraid. And we have so many young women out today in the entertainment industry and the film. Well, I'll just say entertainment industry. Mm-hmm. And just to kind of keep in lines with how Cicely Tyson presented and represented herself and had to try to kind of get Black women out of that, the servitude roles as maids, as prostitutes, as drug dealer, not drug dealers, but drug users, just in that negative light. Now, today, if a lot of the young girls are looking at some of the Black women who are out today, and I'm so sorry, I'm not trying to limit this to a Black woman's conversation, or discussion, because I know that there are some things that are universal to us just because we are women.
Yes, absolutely.
But I've only lived this life as a Black woman, so I can only give that experience.
Absolutely. That's true.
But what I'm getting at is that the differences between people will say that times have changed and that women have to be more expressive and women shouldn't be afraid to ask and show. And if she decides to speak a certain way that isn't considered couth, it is uncouth. If her behavior, and sometimes, Black women, we get coined with being aggressive anyway, right? And combative and argumentative, disagreeable even. But we have now where we've got a lot of young women, and I don't really want to name names, but we've got a lot of young women out here who are expressing themselves sexually and embracing our bodies and the different form factors and the way we speak. A woman who may curse, all of those things now are deemed as, wow, she's bad. She is. And when I say bad, meaning good, that's exactly who I want to be. And there is a fine line when you're trying to let young women know that reality is one thing. And we have to understand that women who are on the stage of entertainment, it's okay for you to do those things because this is their career, this is their profession, this is their uniform.
Right.
And it's very confusing for you to watch that. And you're getting confused. I want to be a little bit more confident. I want to be like her. I don't want men to treat me any kind of way. And I want to seem in control. I want to seem that I have power. And they will look at these women as examples to model, not realizing that these are entertainers. They're selling a brand. They're doing these things for monetary or for, status. So how do we let young women know at their various ages in life that the differences between the mission and the goal of an entertainer, a woman who's an entertainer versus a woman who reality?
Well, let me just say this. A mother has a major role. And I just believe from the time a child is conceived to the womb and is born, the work really begins. And unfortunately, if the work has not been put in, I mean, from the time they come out of the womb, it is very hard because all the distractions of the world can and will consume the mind. So the reason why I said the mother has a major role is because too often in our society, we have mothers who want to be best friends to their daughters. They don't want to make them mad. They don't want to discipline them. They think if they say this, she's going to run away. They think if they say that, she's going to do this. Whatever the case may be, that's when the distraction comes in because the work has to be done. Let me just say this. It is not going to be done on the phone all day. It's not going to be done surfing the internet. It's not going to be done through social media. It is not going to be done airing out problems out in the air. There is a role that God has given every woman when she becomes a mother. And sadly, not all cases, but sadly, things of the world consumes the mother, and therefore she does not have the proper time for her daughter or her son. And at 14, 15, now we are shaking it like it's hot. Now we want to be a part of this, and now we want to be a part of that. And the child can easily, start becoming very disrespectful because they can remember the timeless times that a parent has spent with them. So, converting the mind after wasting a lot of time on a little of nothing is not impossible, but it takes a lot to convert because the work was not put in. So how can I tell you, not to get all wrapped up in this type of behavior when I have been amplifying this behavior over the years in some shape, form, or fashion? When I have not sat down and talked to you about how a young lady sits and how she either she sits with her legs closed or she sits with her legs crossed at all times, as my mother taught me as a young girl. How can I tell you? Yes, I'm the mother, but how can I tell you when I have neglected so much, when I put shopping above substance, when I want to be, as the mother, hypothetically, the one that's on the stage, because I don't really know who I am. See, it goes way back and it's real deep. And it's real deep.
It is. It is. It's too deep for this. Too deep for this podcast. But you're right. It starts at the beginning. It starts at the beginning.
And if you ever want to know how the end is going to look, just go back to the beginning. I mean, do we really take time and have family time? Do we really take time and sit down and eat? Or are we driving up, at the fast food and we're talking on the phone? You want a hamburger? I want a hamburger. 2 hamburgers, 5 French fries, and da. And then, we're eating on the way home. And then we still on the phone when we get home. And then, girl, I got 125 likes. Ooh, girl. Ooh, I had 9,000, views. Or we are so into it. And so our children are watching us. And that's what the signals we're putting out. But see, that little girl that we talked about early on, that little girl has developed into a full-grown woman. And so she's still searching and she's still trying to figure out who she is. So as an adult woman, I'm going to figure this thing out. And I want to shake it
and not be limited and not be restricted.
And not be limited, restricted, or held accountable.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, that word. Accountability.
Yes, are held accountable. And so it's one behavior begets the other. And so that's why it's so important. And we cannot reverse time, but we can certainly do better with the time that we have. But it is critical that, these smartphones and these laptops and all of these different shows are not seen in all different rooms in the house, and allowing your children to be at free will, listening and watching everything because you are too busy doing your thing.
That's true. That's true. And what you're doing is getting in the way of what I'm trying to do. And what I'm doing right now is more important than parenting and being a model example, the true example that should be modeled from home.
Oh, it starts at home. I just fairly believe God has given the parents the keys to raise his children. Now, what we do with that is a whole different story. But the keys are found in his holy word, in the Holy Bible. And sadly, we want to do as human beings, we want to do in and everything besides, let me get in this word and let me study it and let me see what's required of me as a woman, as a person, as a single person, as a married woman, as a woman as a whole.
Right. Definitely. Mm-hmm. We've touched on a lot of different scenarios that deal with our personal lives and personal development. What I would like to segue into is not only are you an author, but professionally, career-wise, you have experienced an amazing job, if you want to call it, just to keep it simply put, yes, as a stewardess or flight attendant. Can we get a little insight, just some behind the scenes on what?
Oh my goodness. Let me just roll back the hands of time, if I may. I just remember being in the third grade and the teacher, she asked us it was a Friday, and she said, Monday, you come back to class and you need to tell the class, what do you want to be when you grow up? You remember those questions we always got. What do you want to be when you grow up? Well, everybody in the class, they would stand up and they would say, they would sit down and they would say, I want to be a fireman. I want to be a policeman. I want to be a nurse. And I stood up and I said, I want to be an airline stewardess. So let me tell you that. Fast forward, in my senior year, my high school yearbook, people have written through that book, I hope you be that airline stewardess that you want to be. My cheerleader sponsor in high school, I hope to see you flying the friendly skies. It's just written in there. And it's something that I always wanted to do. And let me tell you something, persistent pays off. It took me 6 years of rejections of the many no, 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 and no. And finally, God allowed me to go in and be, and the language has changed since then, since high school in the third grade. And so God has blessed me to be that flight attendant. And I love it. And I have to give all the credit and the honor and the glory to him. Now let me tell you something. He has blessed me to see some amazing places and go to many, many different countries. And I just love the flexibility. If I want to have lunch in New York today, I can fly to New York. If I want to have lunch in LA tomorrow, I can fly to LA. The beauty of all of it is being able to see all of God's creatures around the world and to experience all the different languages. Well, do I speak a second language? I don't, but God is always guiding me in another country. So I love it. And what I want to say to anybody, I don't care how old you are or how young you are, it's never too late to pursue your dream. You have to be persistent. Remember, it took me 6 years. It was no, 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 no. And I said, yes, 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 I can. And because of that, it has been enriching to my life. I meet people from all different walks of life. I get chance to experience a taste of the world at its best. And for that, I am so grateful to God for not just this job, but it is a career for me because I am living my third grade dream.
Yes, ma'am, you are. And I think that is amazing. I do remember those questions. I do remember the teacher probing the class and asking all of us, what do you want to be when you grow up? And how many of us actually dream as big as you did? And actually it came to life, and you didn't give up. You did not give up, and now you're living, and you said congratulations.
And let me just add this. A lot of my classmates, they were going off to college, and I didn't go to college. A lot of my classmates, and at the time, it was, we didn't have all these careers now, career positions, I should say. And so they were going for business administration. And, I'm just saying to myself, now, what am I going to do with that? Because my personality wasn't, in my mind, caved in. My personality is vivacious. And so when they were going off to college and just about everybody was going for about the same thing, I was just saying to myself, I'm not going. I'm going to start seeking employment as a flight attendant. Well, you're too young when you first get out of high school, but I tell you what, it has certainly paid off, because even to this day, God has blessed me to be flying approaching 30 years, March the 28th. And so I'm glad I followed the lead, because another thing that makes people very disgruntled is they like the money, but they don't like the work that they do. They don't like their jobs. And,
True.
And then they take it home and it becomes a mess for the family. It becomes a mess for the whole household. So I am grateful and I'm blessed to know that God blessed me to follow my breadcrumbs of faith and to go and seek what he had already sought for me.
And that is amazing. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, when you first began or just got out of high school, graduating, that you weren't quite the age that they were looking for. And that's another thing that people do struggle with, is not really knowing what they want to do per se, or just the struggle with contending with going to college. Everybody's not cut out, but that is the path that from the time we started school and we went through every grade level, that's what's been, pounded in our heads is college, get a degree, get a profession. And most of those professions are going to be in teaching or athletics. You're going to be an attorney. Those are the most common things that, people hear about. They don't hear, and we can't fathom a flight attendant.
Right.
And as Black women, how many flights, those of us who actually get to get on a plane, so there's so many people who don't, but when you do actually get to travel, how many of those flight attendants, and I'm not sure, is that the same name for males as well?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay.
It's all under the same umbrella.
Right. So when you get the opportunity to finally fly in vacation, how many of them do you see that actually look like you?
Right. Exactly. And sometimes I am the only African-American on the flight. Sometimes I'm the only African-American out of the crew. And so it's such a blessing. I saw these movies growing up about flight attendants. And back then you had to be, way back then, you had to be single. You had to be a nurse. You couldn't have any children. They really, really beefed those standards up way back when. And so I always saw that. And I was like, this is pretty nice. And that's exactly what I want to be when I grow up. An airline stewardess.
And I think that's amazing. I'm so glad that you were able to, again, just not be discouraged and continue to stick through and continue to apply. And as he stated, most of us don't, if you're not a spiritual person, but just a rule of life, you get discouraged easily and you give up and you don't keep at it. And, that's just a rule of thumb or a practice. It's definitely a practice that we should keep in our lives. Keep trying. Trying.
Exactly. And being a woman of faith, a Christian woman, listen, no one is exempt. We all have a mental capacity that we have to nurture. And so if you are a Christian or you not a Christian, you still have to nurture your mind.
That's
you
true.
Still have to nurture your mind. This pandemic can affect Christians as non-Christians. It can affect anybody, but you have to nurture your mind.
And that is the main thing. You are so correct. It doesn't matter if you have a religious conviction, it doesn't matter what your walk of life. And I'm so glad you actually mentioned that as well. Now, we do know that a lot of industries have taken a hit as a result of COVID, the pandemic, whatever you want to call it. How have you fared during this?
Well, being that I am a Christian, I can speak for my Christian views, is that I am not worried about the future because I know who holds the future. But that's my walk, okay? That's my walk. Why should I worry about something that I have no control over? The only control I have over anything pertaining to work is to get up and go to work and do the best job while I'm at work. But I cannot sit and worry in the midst of this pandemic what is going to happen, or why is it not happening too fast, or when and if it's going to come back, or just worry myself in a frenzy. And like I said, I know who holds the future.
That's right.
And the pandemic did not catch God off guard. So my faith is bigger than myself, because I could be waddling over here going, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? And why, worrying myself in a tensy.
That's true. That is so true. You're right. It didn't catch God off guard. It caught us.
It called us, and he knew it was going to happen way before I was ever conceived in my mother's womb. So it behooves me to be worrying about something I have no control over. But what instead I can do is pray about it.
That's right.
I can pray about it.
That is all right.
And so to be able to handle situations, to me, from a perspective, is not in my hands, but is all in God's hands. And in due season, this too shall pass. Due season.
It will. And we just have to stick to our guns and stay motivated and encouraged, especially during times that are completely out of your control. Well, we have gotten a wealth of information to you, but I do want to ask, in the event there is a young man or a young woman, it doesn't matter what your age is, unless there is an age limit. If someone is considering, or after hearing your podcast about being a flight attendant, if they're interested in this career, do you have any advice? What advice do you have to give?
Yes. Well, first of all, the airline industry is like none other. It's like one application to 1,000. One person normally gets interviewed out of 1,000 people because the pool is so big. But anything that you have dreamed about or you desire to become in life, it is going to take persistence. Remember, I said it took me 6 years. No. And I said, yes, I can. I've been living this dream since the 3rd grade. So it's going to take persistence. And when you go in, Back in the day, we went in 30 years later. As for me, people have been flying much longer than I have. I mean, it's all on video now. So have your social skills intact. Bring out the best in you. And just remember, if this airline turns you down this year, then reapply next year. Apply with different airlines, because it is not the walk-in job that you sit down and just get. But I tell you one thing, it will be definitely worth your wait. So the key to anything is to be persistent. If you want to become a flight attendant, yes, you go by the criterias, you go online, you fill it out, you wait for the group interview, you wait for the one-on-one interview, and you wait for welcome aboard. And if you don't get the welcome aboard, keep being persistent.
Are there any special skills that are in consideration for this role?
Well, I mean, when you think about it, you definitely have to have personality. It's a people person job. You can't interview and, be as dry and, well, I guess I want to work here. I don't know. No, you got to give it your best, but you got to give anything in life your best. Anything.
So if you're not a people person and you don't really like working around people and customer service, this is a front facing. So you're going to have to deal with different personalities and, and you're on a flight. So there are going to be some different, I don't want to call them challenges, but there are going to be some things that you'll have to be able to get used to being on a flight and balance. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that you have to consider. You can't be afraid of flying.
You can't be afraid of flying. You can't be afraid of heights.
That's right.
You cannot be afraid to be alone, because when you get to the hotel, sometimes there are people who just have to be around people. I like to do my own thing. I enjoy my own time. I like to read, and I'm fine if I eat by myself. I'm fine if I do room service. I'm fine. But it's a lot that entails in that. You can't be homesick. I want to go home. No, when you're on a 3-day trip, you're out for 2.5 days. You don't come back home to the third day. It's a lot entails more than just jumping on a plane. And all of that, if we could just take it and bring it all the way back to being that little girl and having that confidence and nurturing your self-esteem and valuing your self-worth. And now that you are a full adult woman, it's okay if everyone goes down and have dinner and you're not there. You don't feel insecure. If they're talking about you, who cares?
That's right.
Who really cares? And so the main word that I would say to this, because this is just not the walk-in job that you just get, the main word is to be persistent. To be persistent, because that's when you see results. And that's with anything.
That's the word, baby. That is the word.
Mm-hmm.
Now you are very well versed. You're a speaker. We know you're an author. Now you've got this amazing job or career, this profession that you've had for 30 years. What about individuals who might be listening and are interested in becoming an author, and possibly even public speaking? What type of advice do you have for those individuals?
Well, I would say is really to be true to yourself. You have to find your niche. If you want to write a book, you want to become a writer, it's going to take time. We all know that we picked up a book and go, what in the world is this author talking about? Or we try to go to chapter 10 to see if it's getting better, or we read the back of the book to see the insight of it. So you really have to sit down and see which direction you are writing in. And if it's not going to make sense to you, you're the writer. it is not going to make sense to people. So that means you have to unplug. You have to unplug the smartphone. You have to unplug social media. You have to unplug and detox your mind so you can write clearly, that your readers from all different walks of life and all different ages can pick your book up and read it, knowing that it is a book of substance. So it takes time. It takes structure. It takes dedication. It takes commitment. Either you're going to watch a movie, the first movie, the second movie, and spend 4 hours of watching a movie, or you decide you're going to spend 4 hours of writing a chapter. It's about discipline.
Right. And none of these things that that you're speaking about today are things you can just wake up one morning and say, oh, I'm going to write a book. Oh, I'm going to be a flight attendant. Oh, no. I'm going to be a public speaker.
No. And it's all in, it's interesting that you said that, because let me just say this. We live in such a microwave society, and we want it now. Give it to me now. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. It takes work to get anywhere. You just don't wake up, saying, I am, an engineer. I am a photographer. I am a doctor. I am an attorney. Things take work. And so no matter what you're doing, whether you're writing a book or you chasing your career, it takes work.
It does.
Dedication and commitment. And without that, it is not going to get done.
That's right. Well, Miss Angela Clay, thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom and helping us all out at whatever point in life or stage, wherever we are in our journey. Some of us have been on our journeys for some time, and others of us are just now getting started, or we're just halfway there. We're coming out of one situation and into another. But we do appreciate you for taking time and sharing these words of wisdom, these gems. And I'm so grateful to you for sharing. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. And at this point in the interview, we're winding down. What I do want to know is whether or not you have any projects, or how can we keep in touch with you, or if you just have words of wisdom to close on. This is.
Well, I am working on a project, and I'm very excited about it. It's coming from a singles woman point of view, because somewhere down the road, we feel like we have been forsaken and we are not on the forefront as everyone else is, especially when people look at married couples as single people, or they hear wedding bells, or they want to be anxiously in a relationship. So I am working on a big project that I will be introducing this summer, and I'm so excited about it. Also, I'm in my third writing, working on that, which I am really excited about that. It is going to be super duper fantastic. So I want to say to each one who is listening that no matter what you are going through in life, I don't care what it is, nothing is too big for God. People may be able to box with you, but their arms are too short to box with God. And so if you don't know him, I just want to challenge you to get to know him, because that's where the peace and the joy and all the contentment comes from. So I challenge you to challenge yourself to get just a little closer to God. And I want to thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. Thank you so much. I have thoroughly enjoyed this interview. Wish you well in the future, and thank you so much for the platform.
Thank you, and you are welcome back anytime. And people, if y'all haven't learned something, if you're not empowered, if you're not inspired, if you're not encouraged, I really and truly don't know how to help you. But wherever you are, who knows? Maybe this isn't the day. Play it back. Miss Angela Clay, author Angela Clay. You all look for those book titles. Will you repeat those titles again for us?
Yes. The first one is Loving the Me I See. And the second one is Every Girl Is Not Your Friend.
Do you have a website we can visit?
Yes, I am on social media up under Angela Clay. You can also go to my website at angelaclay.com.
And will you spell that for some of us who?
That's okay. My website is Angela Clay, ANGELACLAY.com.
Well, that's that. Thank you. And you have a good day. Continued success to you. And again, appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We've come to the close of another episode of the End User Talk podcast. I hope that what you've heard today will leave you feeling empowered. Thank you for listening. And remember, every day's a training day.